back here on the Dean Show with our brother Omar, who is coming up in a Muslim family, not practicing, but you have some of the moral teachings, some of the things, the basics: don't drink, don't fornicate, you got to get married, don't smoke, basic things. But now you're telling yourself, why am I going to follow these rules? Let me try to look into Islam just because I can find some contradictions there. Is that safe to say? I can find some inaccuracies. I can prove and put it in the same basket as all the other man-made religions, so then I can let loose, and my conscience won't be eating away at me.
Right.
But you're finding something else different.
Exactly.
So you left off now that you are intellectually, analytically coming at this, and you're finding out that this is not the case. It is coming more so to fruition that this is something that could possibly be from the Creator. Are you there yet, that it's 100%? Where are you at now?
I'm there yet. I mean, yes, I'm there, but I'm challenging it still, you know, because I'm trying to think there has to be an explanation, right? And I'm trying to challenge it. And one of the things that brought me into the religion even more is that this challenge that I was posing to people, you know, all sorts of people of knowledge, people just like common folk, anyone, this challenging always was actually welcomed, and it was encouraged. A lot of other faiths, you know, I don't mean to pick on anyone in particular, but I know a lot of other faiths say, well, don't challenge it, just believe it, blindly follow it, you know, and don't question it, because if you question it, then you're stupid, you know, just believe it. And I think, well, if there really is a religion from God, you have to be able to question it, and it has to be undefeatable, right? So I'm continuing on, I'm questioning these things, I'm trying to find explanations for how these, you know, facts could have been put in this book. I'm trying to find maybe these verses, these scientific facts, they meant something else. I'm just trying to disprove it, you know, but every single time I try to disprove one of these facts, I actually get bombarded with more evidence that it's the truth, you know. And so...
But you mentioned something earlier, that you hoped and thought that you were sincere, that you were, you know, you were trying to do this, but at the same time, were you being sincere about it? You weren't like, even if it was the truth, you weren't trying to cover it up.
No, absolutely not. I was never trying to cover everything up, or, you know, I never just put the book away and said, I'm sure it's a fluke. You know, this never happened. I'm just trying to, and even to this day, I still do that.
You're challenging, but are you sincere at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, our religion teaches us to, if we find something better, we go to it. So if I find that the Quran was actually written, you know, 20 years ago, then I go away from Islam. You know, that isn't the case. And so even to this day...
So you're not finding anything better?
No, I cannot find anything better. No, and I look into, I mean, I've looked into scientific facts of the Bible. I've looked into how the Bible plays into, you know, modern day. I look into how, I mean, I lived in Japan for 3 years. I've studied Buddhism intensively. And Buddhism, it's nice and all that, but there's no evidence. And that's the kind of person I am. I need evidence. I need proof to believe in something. You know, you go and buy a car, right? You don't buy it because the salesman tells you to buy it. You buy it because you've done the research and you have the evidence that this is the best car for you. Why should religion be any different?
So you looked into Buddhism. You looked into some of the other religions also?
Yeah, Christianity. I mean, I have a lot of Christian friends. You know, I looked into Judaism. I looked into, I mean, religions that you probably would never even heard of, you know, in Japan, because I was there for 3 years, and I'm just trying to find, and a lot of religions preach good, you know. I'm not saying that Islam is the only religion that's, you know, good. I mean, Christianity is good, you know, do unto your neighbor what you want done to yourself. You know, these are all good, but, you know, you don't have to have a religion to be good. And so if I'm going to follow a religion, I don't want to be a Muslim just because Islam is good, because every religion is good. You know, what makes Islam different from everything else? That's my question. And that's why I research everything.
Did you find that when you looked at these other religions, because they can teach some good, but if the foundation that it's built on, it's not from the Creator, then hold on, it could be teaching you to do some good. But if you look at some of these other religions, for instance, they may call to be good to your neighbor, they might call to give in charity, but if the ultimate evil is to set up another God besides God, make God into a man or his creation, then ultimately this can't be from God, because the message has always been the same: worship the one God, not his creation. So that if these other religions, for instance, are calling you to worship Buddha or a man or a woman or an idol or a saint, then that's contradicting the way of life of God. How did you...
Well, that's one thing I noticed too. I mean, almost every religion seems to be based off a lot of Muslims, we know this, and a lot of times we say this, I'm just going to say it again, a lot of religions seem to be based on a person or a place. You know, I mean, Christianity, Christ, right? Buddhism, Buddha. Hinduism, the Hindus' valleys, you know.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think, you know, but Islam, it isn't. I mean, what does Islam mean? It means sincere submission to the one who created you.
Sincere submission to the one who created you.
To the one, and these are all, by definition, this is how we can say that Islam has been here since the very beginning of time.
Since the very beginning of time.
The very beginning, before that even. Before that, I'll even say before that even. Because everything, this cup is in sincere submission to the one who created it. Because it's following the rules of gravity. It's following the rules of physics.
That's a nice
point.
point.
Everything is. And
the sun?
The sun. Everything, you know, I met a guy who worshipped the sun the other day.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, speaking of the sun, different story.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was kind of funny because you're going to worship the sun. The sun's going to die one day, then how's it going to save you? You know?
So, okay, so now tell us, because we don't have too much time, we want to get all the great highlights of your life, that now you're coming to this realization that this is from the Creator.
Right.
So what happens now? You're young, and
I'm young,
now
and
a lot of people who maybe they might know this, but they don't follow it up with action.
And
did you start? How did you go from here?
Well, change doesn't happen overnight. You know, I mean, even though I was now starting to realize that there is just not a way I could understand how this book can be from a man, it has to be from God. I said, fine, but you know, I still want to do this other stuff, so I'll be religious when I come home, but then when I go out, you know, I'll do the other stuff too, so now I'm living the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
And for a while, that's how it, you know, was. But then I think what really started to change was the establishing of the prayer, because this is when you are in direct communication with God. You know, no intermediaries, you know, not going through a man to God, no detours, just right. I'm talking to God directly.
You start to implement the
prayer.
prayer.
Right, implementing. And it's not, again, this is not an overnight thing. I mean, first it was just one prayer a day, right? And it wasn't, you know, only in my apartment. I'm not going to pray outside of, you know, my apartment, the safety and the comfort. And that's fine for a beginner. You know, I don't have any regrets about that, because that's how you ease into, you know, your real calling. But so it was just once a day. And then during Ramadan, okay, now it's time to be really religious. Maybe I'll do it 2 times a day, maybe 3 if I'm, you know, in the mood. And eventually you just keep doing this, and you keep doing this, and you memorize what you have to say, and you memorize the movements, and it just becomes so easy. It becomes so, and it feels so natural. You know, it's not embarrassing. Someone looks at you when you're praying. It's easy to see this man is praying. You know, we don't have any kind of, we don't shake our arms all around and, you know, do some kind of ritual
weird.
thing. No, nothing weird.
Prostrating, putting your head on the ground, the
right.
same way that Jesus did when he fell on his face and prayed to God, Moses,
Absolutely.
Abraham, all
Absolutely.
of them.
That's how we, as far as we know, the prophets prayed like this.
So you started to implement the prayer, and you started slowly, little by little, and then you worked up to, what, 5 times a day?
Then 5 times, well, I remember the first day I prayed 5 times a day. It was a big deal, you know, because now I felt, okay, now I'm a real Muslim, you know. And so I prayed 5 times a day for 3 days in a row. And I'm like, okay, now I need a break. Now I'll pray 3 times today.
Yeah.
And you just kind of, you know, you make these schedules for yourself, and everyone will ease into it at their own pace. But eventually, the more I began to pray, the more I was willing to pray outside of the comfort of my own apartment, you know. And now I'm praying, not on the street, but I'm praying, you know, at my place of employment. I'm praying at school, and people start to see you. And you become more conscious of it, you know, and the more conscious of your Muslim self you become, the more you want to learn about it. You know, the more you want to understand yourself, because you know people are judging you, whether maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, you know, whatever. And so this is where I became more and more interested in the study of my own faith. And I'm telling you, just the more I studied it, the more I became committed. You know, sometimes people, they study their religion and they learn more and more about it, but it starts making less and less sense, and so they say, well, I'm this religion, but I don't really believe it. You know, with me, it's everything was in sync. The more I understood about my body, about the world, about everything. You know,
everything just made sense. The more you learned, the more you got committed, the more you started to implement the second pillar of Islam, the salat, the prayer, the more did that help you to keep away from a lot of the bad things
Absolutely.
that are out there?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what, you know, when I meet some friends or even my family, when sometimes people, they just see Islam as nothing but a simple set of rules.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do this, can't do that. And then when you look at it this way, you're really starting to lose touch of what Islam really is. You know, so before I tell anyone, I mean, new Muslims, I don't give them any rules. I just say establish the prayer.
Yeah.
The rest is going to come with time, because you're going to want to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so that is my first advice to everyone. I mean, including myself. I remind myself every day, just pray, just establish the prayer, because everything else falls into place. Once you build the foundation, everything else comes into place.
Let's take another break, and we'll be right back with our brother Omar here on the Deen Show.